Someone in my comments the other day asked me, how many failed attempts did it take you before you got to the World Championships? The World Championships has been something that all these top players seem to be getting to every single year. First year competitors seem to be qualifying for the World Championships with little to no effort. So, how long did it take you, Rahul, someone who was one of the best players in the game, to qualify for your first World Championships? Well, I want to tell you guys that it took me a while. It was not the easiest road for me in general, and I wanted to share my world story a little bit. While everyone's talking about the doom and gloom, the potential, whatever World Championships could be, I wanted to bring up the my world story, basically. Like, this video is going to be my story. A lot of you guys out there don't know me on that personal level. I have not really talked about myself and kind of my background, my roots, where I come from, and how my journey in the Pokemon TCG came to be. So I wanted to kind of talk about that today. Today is going to be just a video about my world's journey, and I want to hear about yours in the comments below. It might not be your journey into the World Championships necessarily, but how you got into competitive Pokemon, what kind of drives you to be better, and maybe some of the connections and stuff you've made across each season, and how each season you feel like you've improved. And a season is one full year, for those of you guys wondering. One World Championship to the next, I consider a full season. So I got brought into the game. I used to collect cards and stuff when I was a kid. Whatever, every young boy in my age demographic had cards. Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever. Bakugan, I think it was Fire at some point. I have them upstairs somewhere. I have my dual disc still somewhere, actually. But Pokemon cards was one of the things that was on the wayside, and my parents were a big Nintendo. We were a Nintendo family, so once every year I got a video game. It was basically just my Christmas gift, and so I played the Pokemon TCG here and there. Came back to the game in 2010 when a couple of my friends at the time found their old cards, so we started getting together and playing, and this became a occurrence for us. We just started beating up after school and playing with our own rules. We didn't really understand what was going on, and this became something where we started going to the public library. There was a league that ran on Fridays from 3 to 6 p.m., and some incredibly famous names that you might have heard of: Michael Pramawat, Jamie Pendarvis, Jimmy McClure. A lot of these like high-end individuals, Dean Nizam, top 4 finisher at Indianapolis Regionals this year. A lot of these guys were at this local library league. So I kind of got thrown into the wolves when I first got there, but I made a lot of really cool friends off the bat. And coming in, I went with my 2 friends, and those 2 friends, as we got to high school, kind of disappeared. And so I started going back to that league because I had now made friends with a couple of these other guys, but I wouldn't go that often. I was a student athlete when I was in high school. I was a track athlete. For those of you who didn't know, I ran the 100, 200 long and triple jump, and I did make it all the way to states for the triple jump. Not the long, I didn't get that far. The long and triple were my 2 best events. And so in 2010 to 2014, I didn't play in a single World Championship. I didn't qualify for a single World Championship. The idea of a single World Championship or qualifying was just completely out of the realm of possibility for me because of financial reasons, because I was a student, because I didn't have the time. And back then, the circuit was not nearly as open as it is now, where it used to be top 40 back in the day in terms of championship points, which was a incredibly high threshold to get to. And if you missed any portion of the season, because the season was cordoned off into battle roads, spring and fall, regionals, spring, winter, fall. I think winter was added later in one of the later years. I don't remember which year, but spring and fall were typically the 2 that existed. And then states, and then cities. And if you missed any of those blocks, and then nationals, obviously, you were pretty much screwed because you missed a huge chunk of the season. And for me, the Christmas time or like the holiday time around cities was always a big part of the track season, where I'd be running like 3 invitationals plus regular track events. So just cities were out of the question for me. I couldn't play. So, and I come from predominantly Indian upbringing. Both my parents are Indian. They were born and raised there. I was born here, but I went back home pretty much every summer until I was almost 14 to spend with my grandparents. And English is not even my first language. So, big ups there for me. That being said, studies was always my predominantly main focus. My parents wanted me to get into an Ivy League. I wanted to be a doctor. Very stereotypical. Nothing against the grain there. But when I got to my junior year, I took my first round of SATs, and I ended up getting a perfect score, which I think this is back when we had 3 sections, reading, writing, math, before it was condensed, and I ended up pulling off a perfect score, which was pretty insane. I back then, there was like you could get a couple wrong and still be perfect because it was like based on the, I don't remember what they based it on, but it was like, I think I didn't get like perfect per question, but I got a 2400, if that makes sense. And so as a gift, my parents were like, "Look, you work hard every year. I volunteered at hospitals every summer, by the way. Also, um, this was like something I used to do. I used to volunteer in the OR specifically, and because I wanted to be a surgeon, I wanted to save lives. I wanted to help people. I still do, just not down that path, a different path potentially. Um, and when that opportunity was arisen, I asked my parents, could I get a trip to Vancouver? And they said, we're just going to buy you a flight and you got to figure out everything else on your own. Is that fair? And I said, yeah, sounds fair to me. I luckily had a friend at the time who had a free hotel room from top four in the previous year's World Championships in Hawaii. So I was able to stay with them. Slept on their floor in the corner, whatever I could. So I went to my first World Championships in 2013 in Vancouver. One of the coolest environments I've ever been a part of. I ended up playing the tournament, the grinder. There was a last chance qualifier back then, is what they called it. And if you made it to the final 8, they would allow you into the tournament the next day. And I lost in round of 32. So I needed to win 2 more games, basically. And I would have been into the World Championships. But close is only good in a couple things. This was not one of them. Um, and so the following year was my senior year in high school. I didn't put a lot of effort into Pokemon at all. I did basically nothing across the whole season. I went to a regionals, I think. I top 8 at regionals. I might have gone to a states or two here and there, but like besides that, I just didn't play at all in the 2014 season. But Worlds was in my hometown of Washington, D.C. So I ended up going to the World Championships to hang out with everyone on Friday. Cool environment. Got to see people test. Got to see people hang out. I played the grinder for fun. I ended up hitting one of my closest friends in the first round, so I got absolutely smoked because he knew what I was playing. And also, I didn't go with the intention of winning because Saturday morning was my flight down to college. I went to Florida for school, University of Central Florida, and I did earn a full scholarship to attend there. It was the second best option for me, I think, behind any Ivy League because my priorities were Ivy Leagues, and if I didn't get into an Ivy League, I didn't want to burden either myself or my parents with any debt from school. So bounced down to Florida, and my journey in Orlando began. The 2014-15 season was the first time I tried to go for an invite. This was the first year that the World Championship invite became somewhat open, where the invite was 300 championship points. And this was probably the first year where a majority of players who wanted to try to qualify did qualify. And this is the first year I think they opened up the floodgates to a larger World Championships, one that was more than maybe like 200 players, which was a really cool thing for a lot of people to see because now you had an attainable goal that you could get to across your season, and a lot of people could get there. Once again, we're still in the system of cities and states and stuff and like that. And despite this season, I top 8 at regionals and I top 8 at states, I still did not earn my World Championship invite. I remember falling short by like 30 or 40 points because I had a really bad run at the cities time. I just was really bad at cities. I think I barely top cut any of them, despite playing like 2 cities a weekend, despite playing like the Florida Marathon, despite doing all these things that you're supposed to do as a good player. I just couldn't convert. I just was not good at the time. I was just actually a bad player at the time. And I, luckily, like even going to all these tournaments, I was very fortunate to have a lot of players in the Florida area, the Orlando area, that were passionate enough to drive to all these places and were willing to give me rides. Like I didn't have a car, I didn't have anything, and people were willing to pick me up from campus, or if I took the bus, like one of the buses from campus close to their homes, they were pick me up on the way. They would let me sleep on couches for cities. Like I had a lot of people willing to help me, which was really incredible that season because I was able to just, carry my friendships from previous seasons and that season as well. So my first season, I tried for an invite. I failed. I failed remarkably, and it was a really bad feeling because a lot of people were saying it was the easiest year to get an invite. And it frankly was. For the first time in history, that was probably the easiest year to get an invite outside of, that's like it just was the easiest. And for that summer I took the internship money that I made and I had a decision to make, which was either I could go to spend a little bit to go to the World Championships in Boston and play the Open, which at the time was the first year of the Open, so no one really knew what it was, or I could go to Seattle to watch Dota TI with my friends, and I ended up going to Seattle. Don't regret that decision at all. It was a lot of fun. I ended up seeing Deadmau5. I ended up meeting a couple of really cool people, met a couple of pro players that I was really big fans of at the time, all that good stuff. The next year, I still was not a good player. 2015-16 season, I still was not, I don't think, excellent by any means. My cities run was not spectacular whatsoever, once again. But I did scrape across the finish line, I think, at spring regionals, at Georgia, I want to say. which meant that I didn't. It was either spring regionals or states. One of the two. I was across the finish line, which meant that I didn't have to worry about nationals. I didn't have to worry about putting my invite on nationals. I didn't have to worry about the back half of the season, and I definitely took it way easier than I should have. I definitely would just like let the reins off, and I was like, I qualified for Worlds. I did what I'm supposed to do. But what you guys need to understand is qualifying for Worlds is not the end. That's the starting line. You've now made it here. Make the most of your opportunity, because these opportunities don't come every single day. So like just knowing that you qualified for Worlds it should not be it. And this was my first Worlds. I went to San Francisco, and I had a really close friend that lived there, and so I went to visit him and his family for a couple of days prior. And I might be one of the biggest idiots out there, and I just did not take care of myself. Like, I was too excited about the World Championships. I was staying with friends. I stayed out way too late every single night. I like woke up early to play Pokemon Go. The excitement just wouldn't let me sleep. I was averaging like 2 hours of sleep a night. I was like hanging out with friends as much as possible. I was absorbing the environment as much as I could. I was hanging out in San Francisco until like 2 in the morning. I was waking up at like 6 in the morning. This is the first summer Pokemon Go was released. I was running my body ragged, and I didn't even realize. And I realized it the morning of the World Championships that I had lost my voice. I had an insane fever. And I just felt like death the entire day. I went 2-3 drop. And I remember vividly at 1-2, Jose Marrero came and woke me up because I had literally like found a corner or like a spot in the hallway that was empty, and just was taking a nap because I was just in so much, like, I just couldn't handle myself. And so that's another lesson that I learned about taking care of yourself and your health, because it was incredibly exciting for it to be my first World Championships, but I definitely fumbled the bag a little bit there, and it reflected. The following season, I think was my first season where I had a growth as a player. I ended up developing better testing habits, better learning habits, and just playing to win, a different mentality. Now that I've already qualified for my first Worlds, what's left? It's try to play to win, play to keep consistently top 8ing, get those results. And so the following couple years, I just kept, hammering it out. 2016-17, I didn't qualify for day 2 barely, automatically. And then the next year onwards, my goal was to auto day 2, and I ended up getting that goal every single year. This year is the first year, probably my goals were a little bit all over the place, and I couldn't really figure that out. But yeah, what I wanted to say is this is my 7th Worlds that I'm going to be attending as a competitor. 9th Worlds as a spectator or whatever. And to me, this one is just as special as the first. It is an opportunity that doesn't come every single day. It is a opportunity to spend time with friends. It's an opportunity to do the best I can on the world stage in front of the world. And it's not an exaggeration. If you qualify for the World Championships this year or any year, you are one of the best in this game. You are in the less than 1% of players that play the Pokemon trading card game that is qualified to represent your nation or yourself at the World Championships. Let that honor sink in. Let that pride sink in, and wear it. Enjoy it. Relish it. And one of the coolest things for me when I go to the World Championships is the opening ceremony. Every single time, every single World's opening ceremony, without fail, I get so emotional that I feel like I'm going to cry. I feel like it sends chills down my spine. And it all stems back to 2013 when I heard Nick McCord in Vancouver just say competitor, like he had this like riveting speech that just ended with like competitors like head to your tables, like something like that. But it was just one of the most inspiring speeches that I had ever heard. Like if Nick McCord gave me a speech in that manner, I'd probably go fight a war. Honestly, I feel like this is what all the people in Braveheart felt like. Honestly, so I just felt super inspired from that day to now. And I don't want to like sit here and be the guy that inspired you or whatever. I just wanted to share a little bit of my story, how I got to the World Championships, to tell you that failure is okay, to tell you that you should set your goals higher, shatter those goals, and keep moving forward. And you will be met with disappointment. You will be met with the realistic walls that you will hit at some point as a player, but work towards them. It's just don't give up. It's never too old to start. Just be willing to learn. And every single day, every single tournament gets harder and harder, and I understand that completely. But you just have to be able to put that effort in and believe in yourself at the end of the day. So hopefully this inspired some of you. Hopefully this was a good story. If you hated it, sure, it is what it is. It's my story, not yours. Thank you for listening to my little anecdote. I felt like it'd be a fun thing to share with all of you guys who are here on this channel supporting me. And hopefully my seventh Worlds can be something that I can bring home and make pride for you guys. My goal has always been a Worlds trophy or the championship itself. So see you in Honolulu, and whatever news comes next, we'll talk about it.